Welcome into the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. I'm your host today, Brendan Glasheen, joined by Billy Ward and Bryan Fonseca. Today we're talking UFC betting preview. We make our way to UFC Fight Night at the Apex down in Las Vegas. Looking forward to this one. No Sean Zerillo today. I'm going to spend a quick second on this. It's Sean Zerillo's birthday today. I haven't spoke to Zerillo since Wednesday. We did a baseball pod. I love Sean Zerillo. Works his ass off. One of the best contributors at Action Network. I thoroughly enjoy Sean Zerillo, his analysis, all of it. He asked our producer for the day off for his birthday. Just asking for the day off in of itself is deserved. But now we all know it's Sean Zerillo's birthday, which is great for Sean. I hope he has a great day. It has nothing to do with the day. But the fact is, it was put in our rundown, which now... kind of our producer's fault in a way. Now I have to go out of my way to text Zerillo happy birthday because he's now brought it to our attention by taking the day off. It's not about taking the day off. That's fine. But just take the day off. So, I don't know. I'm surprised Zerillo's not here, but I get it. I do. And he's going to be back next week because, and we're going to get back to the birthday thing. It's just kind of, I don't know what it is. It just irks me. That's my it for the day that no one cares about. I come on here, normally tee up Billy and Sean. Brian's here today, and I just get out of the way. The birthday thing, I don't know what it is. It just goes right up my bum. I don't get it. He's getting a nice day off. Zerillo will be back, though, next week because Payoff Pitch returns, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. He's back next week for some more division previews, our regular Payoff Pitch regular shows throughout the week, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. That starts back up very soon because we have the Korea series that starts next week. So regularly scheduled Payoff Pitch programming returns. Also, if you're interested, Big Bets on Campus has you covered for March Madness. Selection Sunday is coming up this coming Sunday. They'll have a ton of stuff getting out for brackets, and also BBOC will have you covered each day of the tournament. So Thursday through Sunday, those first couple of weekends. And of course, Billy and Bryan are here this week for the UFC betting preview. A quick heads up, the great state of North Carolina officially launched sports betting this week. So if you're in this Tar Heel state, take advantage of the best sign-up offers across every sports book. You can find a link to every one of those offers in the description of this episode. All the North Carolina offers, all in one place. Just check out the link in the episode description. I'll kick it to Billy first because actually it all ties in because one of the fighters in the main event this week, it's his birthday this weekend too. And that's all, it's going to get all juiced up for the weekend because he leans into the extracurriculars. Who might that be, Billy? And does that factor into your luck ratings with a 31st birthday celebration?
Yeah, happy birthday, Tuivasa. As a gift, the UFC stuck him in the Apex in front of 0 fans and no one to hand him shoes filled with beer. So a little bit sad about that. You know, the man deserves a packed arena with people going crazy, hear his silly walkout songs, all that. But no, it doesn't really affect my analysis too much. Don't think it should matter. I do hope someone gives him like a cupcake in a shoe or maybe a cake in the shape of a shoe, something along those lines, just to mark the occasion. And he's taken on Marcin Tybura. You know, Tuivasa's kind of fallen on hard times lately. He's lost his last 3 in a row, all finishes. I think at this point in his career, we know he's not a title contender. He's not going to be a guy who's in the top 3, top 5 of the division. But he can still put on fun fights, and he can kind of be a gatekeeper to the top 10. He's ranked number 9 right now. Tybura's right behind him at 10. I think that's about what we should expect from Tuivasa moving forward, even though at 31, still pretty young for the division. Anyone who's watched him knows what he does. Big power in both hands, mixes in good elbows and knees, almost zero interest in defense, and he had a granite chin for a long time. Took the best shots from Derek Lewis. Cyril Gane was unloading on him to the head, couldn't really put him down with headshots, finally went to the body before he could put him down. We've seen that crack a little bit, though. He's been knocked out in 2 of his last 3. Pavlovich dropped him real bad twice in under a minute. Volkov knocked him down. It looks like, if you watch the replay, that might have been more of a headbutt, so I'm not as worried about that one. And it just really comes down to the chin here. Tybura is not a big power puncher, a lot of decisions by heavyweight standards. Tybura is kind of just okay at everything. He doesn't really have one thing he's awesome at, nothing he's, horribly bad at either. So it depends on whether Tuivasa can just land a big shot before he gets taken down or set on the ground. The interesting thing here for Tuivasa, this is his first fight in the UFC Apex cage in his whole UFC career. He's only fought in big cages. He's also pretty short with a limited reach for heavyweight. Also not a great grappler, so there's kind of two angles on that. If you think this is going to turn into a grappling match, the smaller cage helps Tybura. But on the Tuivasa side, he doesn't have as much ground to cover. He doesn't have to chase down a bigger, taller fighter. I actually think that favors him. If you watch most of his fights, he's always coming forward, always stalking his opponents, always trying to close the gap. That's going to be easier in this small cage. So that's really what puts me over to his side here, as well as being 7.5 years younger than Tybura. So Tai Tuivasa minus 110. Bryan's going to explain why you can get a little bit better price on the knockout odds. That's overwhelmingly the likely way he's going to win. The price difference just isn't enough for me, but I can certainly see it. So we'll let Bryan set me up on why that's the way to play this one.
Okay, yeah, Tuivasa has come down. His numbers come down. Is in that minus 110, minus 115 range after 3 straight knockout losses. How would you like to bet this, Bryan? This main event, UFC Fight Night 88.
I mean, generally, Tai Tuivasa's won one way throughout his MMA career, and that's by finishing off people knockout or technical knockout. This is a ridiculously potentially explosive fight on paper because he's involved. I got him at plus 110 to win by knockout or TKO. We'll see where that is around opening bell time. But, he's got 13 of his 14 wins by knockout, 11 of those in the first round. And I think, we'll get into more later on the best bets portion of this, why I like this fight even more for him, even though in combat sports betting, I do not love betting on somebody who has 3 straight losses going into a fight. This being an exception because, like Billy just said, Tybura is kind of okay at everything, even though, jiu-jitsu black belt, like let's not take that away from him, right? Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt also has some explosiveness in his arsenal as well. But Tai Tuivasa is just like, this is pretty much a fight, in my opinion, that's set up for him to sort of get back on track, start building back up a winning streak again, where his opponent is dangerous, but not as dangerous as he is. He's going to push the action right away, as he often does. Tybura's also been stopped 5 times in his career by knockout or technical knockout. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Like, once that happens several different times in combat sports, like, yeah, you get chinny. And his chin will be tested like pretty much from the opening. And I think that, you mix that with his age, 38 years old. Tuivasa is one of these dudes who he's not here for a long time. He's here for a good time. So I think he's going to win by knockout in emphatic fashion. And I'm actually disappointed that this fight is at the Apex. I don't know why we're still doing cards at the Apex, quite frankly, but, because I feel like this is something that could delight a crowd on a card that's probably not one of the strongest of the year, I would say. But the main event could be explosive, and I think Tai Tuivasa is going to be a big reason for that.
Billy,
real quick, just
go ahead.
Just clarify something. When I say he's not exceptionally good at anything, I do mean relative to other guys in the UFC.
Yeah,
right. Like, he walks into a jiu-jitsu gym, across the country, he's going to dominate as a black belt. But if you look at how he's performed against other UFC fighters, he's not dominating people on the ground. His knockdown rate is actually lower than the UFC average for any weight class, and he's a heavyweight. So that includes 115-pound women, flyweights, all that. His knockdown rate is lower than that total average, which is, by heavyweight standards, real low, which just makes this a huge step down in competition for Tuivasa. We're concerned, Bryan's concerned about Tybura's chin. We're both concerned about Tuivasa's chin. Tybura's never really given us a reason to suspect that he's got big power, is going to test that chin of Tuivasa. Yeah. On the other side, Tuivasa has tested everyone's chin. So, just to clarify, when I say that, like, I feel bad being one of those guys that's like talking bad about people who could obviously beat me up. I do mean relative to other UFC
I did
fighters,
that at the start of the show, kind of, right? I think Cirillo could beat me up, possibly. I didn't realize how tall he was when I met him last July, but yeah, I should feel bad too in that regard. Do either of you have a follow-up thought on the birthday thing? I should have let you guys weigh in on that, but you don't have to have a take. It's just something. It has nothing to do with Sean. It has to do with just the thing. It's the birthday thing.
I mean, I took my birthday off earlier this year.
Okay.
I didn't make that like the reason. Like, I didn't tell a bunch of people. I did tell my editor. I was like, listen, I ain't doing shit on Tuesday. It's my birthday, so I'm just letting you know. And she was cool with it.
You did tell someone who was in charge of you about it.
Yeah, I had to
I'm
let him know. I had to let him because we have meetings on Tuesdays for the
Okay,
NBA
that's
side
fair.
of the
Meetings are
Action
important.
Network. So I was like, listen, I just, I'm literally gonna make myself a nice breakfast and I'm gonna play video games all day. Like that's what I'm doing. That's what I did.
I'm fairly certain I recorded this very podcast on my birthday, but I'd have to go back and check the dates to see if that's true. I know I have at least 1 year. Might not have been last year.
All right. All right, we can move on. But again, just to clarify for the audience, we have a show doc, and I didn't even have the doc open yet, and it's in the first paragraph of my script, my tee up, and it's today Sean Zerillo's birthday. And happy birthday. I'm not saying you
Yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
enjoy the day.
Listen,
It's just I
enjoy
just
yourself,
like
Sean. Baseball season's coming, and
yes.
it's about to kick your ass. So enjoy the day off.
Zerillo last year at the end of the baseball season, and I'm not. This is not to say, like I'm just using Sean as an example. Sean took a vacation because he worked his butt off. He did UFC pods every Friday. He had this.
Correct.
Uh, take the time. I get it. It's just the birthday thing. I just oh, like it's not even him. It's just it's making me think of people that bring up the birthday. It's like, oh, it's my, and they go out of their way to tell people. And that's a very minor reason, but they're like in the workplace, in the office. We're remote when we do a lot of these shows. So it's not the same effect, but it just makes me think of people like that. It just bugs me. Sorry. I had to scratch that itch. And maybe it's because it's Friday, and maybe it's because I'm ready just to wind down because the weekend's here. But happy birthday, Sean. Have a great day. All right, we can move on, I think. Let's go to the fight of the night. We have Bryan Battle opposing Ange Loosa this week. Where are we at on this one, Billy, as far as and Billy's got his luck ratings up, his luck ratings, not luck rankings, different from the NFL breakdowns from Nick Giffen and Sean Kerner they do during the football season. But right now you can get Loosa plus 144 on the money line, and Battle is the favorite.
Yeah, this one's kind of almost fight of the night by default. There's not a lot of big names, not a lot of what I would deem important fights for divisional standings or anything like that. But this is the co-main event. Bryan Battle won the Ultimate Fighter season 29. Wow, can't believe it. Been doing that forever. That doesn't mean as much as it used to. We used to see a big push for these guys coming off Ultimate Fighters, but it's still a thing. 5-1 in the UFC, has stoppages in 4 of those, taking on Ange Loosa. Losa's kind of a cool story. The UFC seems interested in him, but this is a massive step up in competition for Loosa. I wrote it down. His opponents are combined 3-8 in the UFC coming in. Those are Losa's opponents, and the guys he beat are combined 1-6 before this fight. So, he's looked good so far, but he's been fighting guys that, basically AAA level in terms of MMA fighters. And this is the first real test he's had against a really established, tough UFC fighter. Don't have a great read relative to the money line. I think that's about right. Definitely make Battle a favorite. I was pretty surprised, though. You can get Bryan Battle inside the distance at plus 250. I thought that would be a lot closer to the money line than it is. Battle's a guy who's finished all but one of his UFC wins. If you look across his career entirety, he's 10-2. Only 2 of those wins are decisions. Great grappler. He's submitted some guys. Big power in his hands. I believe he's also a BJJ black belt. Could be wrong there. Even if he isn't, he submitted Andre Petroski on the show. Petroski is a high-level grappler known for that, and Battle submitted him. So he's got a bunch of outs here. This is not something where he just needs to land a big shot or he needs it to be a grappling match. Kind of has ways to stop this no matter where it goes. I just believe that those lines should be a lot closer to each other than they are. So plus 250 on the inside the distance if you shop around. Anywhere on this side of plus 200 or so feels too long based on where we have his money line and how he usually wins.
Bryan, you have interest in the favorite at that price on the money line?
Yeah, but I like inside the distance better. Plus 250. Money line, the best you could find it right now is minus 170 or whatever. And I do definitively think Bryan Battle's going to win this fight against Ange Loosa because Loosa is probably, shorter arms, shorter legs, shorter reach. He's going to try and push the pace early, which Gabe Green infamously made that same mistake. I just for a second, because Bryan Battle had one of the knockouts of the year last year, actually in MMA, and it was because his opponent Gabe Green sort of just backed him up into the cage and just had no regard for defense at all. It was one of the stupidest things I've seen in the octagon, where it's immediately, and I don't mean to come at dudes like this, but in fighting, if you're gonna back somebody up into the cage or at the corner, from the start of the fight, and not defend yourself at all, like not keep a hand up by your chin, like, yes, you're going to get caught. And if you're a southpaw, guess what's the punch that's going to find you? It's going to be a straight right hand or a right hook. Bryan Battle caught him with a right hook and decapitated the dude. Like, it was nasty. I think Ange Loosa, like, he's going to come out. I don't know if I'm going to say similarly aggressive, but I do think he's going to try and win that first round, and he could potentially burn himself out there. Bryan Battle is somebody who's a skilled counter striker with his legs and his hands. He's going to try to leg kick him. He's going to, kick him in the midsection area as well. Can switch stances with a level of fluidity that's actually, I think, really nice. He can land straight left hands, straight right hands. I think he's going to box him a little bit well as well. And Bryan Battle is somebody who I think as the fight goes on, he's going to get better. Maybe it's a late finish, but I do think he probably finishes him in some way. I'm not sure if it's a knockout. I'm not sure if it's a submission, but I do feel confident that he's going to win this fight. And I have him. I'll take him on the money line, but I could rock with Billy here and take him inside the distance because Ange Loosa's level of competition, as you mentioned, Billy, like it gives you reason to think he might not survive in this fight that long because Bryan Battle is such a step up in competition for him compared to what we've seen elsewhere. So I also would entertain live betting after round one because Ange Loosa could start off well, and then people could be like, hey, talk themselves into this. But then Bryan Battle, like he has really good cardio. And I think he could start to take over the fight in round two after sort of downloading information, as we call it, in round one, and then really take a stranglehold on this fight. So I would entertain live betting him after round one in the event that he looks just okay. I think he'll pick it up after that.
13 fights total on the card, 7 prelim fights, 6 on the main card, all available on ESPN Plus. Consensus Underdog, it appears. Good week for dogs, Billy, and which one did you land on?
Yeah, so this is kind of it's not about her specifically, but I actually like all three female or women's fighters underdogs here. They're all fights that we think are more likely than not to go to a decision. They're all going to be fights, I think, that are tricky for the judges. And I always say, if we're flipping a coin, you want the side that pays out more than the other side. My favorite of those is Jacqueline Amorim. She's around plus 145. It's actually gotten a little bit, better odds on her throughout the week. I thought it would go the other way. One of the big reasons, and I'm sure Brian's going to mention this, but I'm going to steal his thunder a little bit, she has a 1-foot reach advantage. Like, you almost never see that. Corey McKenna should really be fighting down a weight class, but the UFC doesn't have anything lower than 115, so she's kind of stuck here, but she would really be better suited to 105. And that's fine. It's not boxing. You can overcome that. Normally, the way you overcome that is by getting in the clinch and taking fights to the ground. Well, Amorim is a high-level BJJ black belt, competed in all kinds of high-level jiu-jitsu competitions. McKenna can grapple a little bit, but, she's a brown belt. It's a world of difference. Even, lower-level black belts versus people competing in, IBJJF worlds and stuff like that is a big difference, much less when you're not even a black belt yet. So don't really see how McKenna gets this done here because she has a whole foot of reach to overcome, which you never see that. Like, that's huge. And then if she gets in close, then it's a grappling match, which also doesn't favor her. So Brian's going to give you another play on this one, but like all the women's underdogs, Amorim is definitely my favorite.
And Brian, why do you agree with Billy on Amorim for an underdog play?
Yeah, because I think I'm a little surprised the line is where it is. I think people would say, like, hey, Corey McKenna is not as one-dimensional, right? Like, with Jacqueline Amorim, it's going to be, she's going to try to get you on the ground, use her jiu-jitsu, basically. Corey McKenna likes to do that as well. I would say that Jacqueline Amorim is better at it, and it'll play right into her hands. This is where she wants the fight to be. She'll want it to be on the ground, in the clinch. She's won with a variety. Like, she's a creative submission artist. Like, she's won with rear naked chokes, arm bars, knee bars, arm triangle. And I think in taking this fight to the ground, like, that's just going to benefit her. Interestingly enough, if you're looking at her past victories, a lot of them by submission, you can find her right now at plus 500 to win by submission, which I think is actually probably worth a sprinkle. I actually might put that on our, plus 500 by decision and plus 330 by submission. I actually might put one of those in our prop squad file this week now that I'm looking at that, because I feel like those are long enough odds. This fight may go to the cards, but I think Jacqueline Amorim is going to have moments, submission attempts when this fight does go to the ground. Um, I would lean on her just sort of edging this out also because like I don't think plus 145 is just right. I feel like this should be almost even. And I know why people think that McKenna's going to win, should be the favorite for this fight, but I just think this fight is going to go to the ground. Like it feels inevitable that that's going to happen. And when that does happen, I think Amorim's going to get the better hand because of what we were talking about with her submission abilities and also just her jiu-jitsu is high level. So I think the fight's going to play into her hands and she's going to take advantage of it.
And Morin has all the stoppage upside here, right? She's never
Yeah.
won a fight by decision in her career. McKenna has, in her career, half of her wins are by decision, but in the UFC, all but one of them, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5 counting the contender series. She doesn't really have a way to end this fight where Morin has probably multiple ways. She's got ground and pound victories, probably the more powerful striker. I would say less technically adept on the feet, but in terms of shot for shot, who's got who's got bigger power, that's definitely a Morin as well. So yeah, just a classic. Like these are the kind of underdogs we like to take, right? They have the stoppage upside, they have the grappling upside. The line suggests it's probably going to go to the judges. We never trust judges to get it right in MMA, so all those things point in the same direction here.
Yeah, and if you're telling me this fight is going to wind up on the ground, I'm going to take the person who's jiu-jitsu I trust more.
Okay, how about props? And Billy, this relates to one of the fights on the main card, and you wrote up on Christian Rodriguez in your luck ratings write-up, an undervalued fighter, but of course we're talking props, so you're not taking a side here necessarily, but you do think there's value on the Rodriguez money line side. But what's another approach to Christian Rodriguez this weekend?
Yeah, ended up doing the full breakdown of this one just as a bonus piece, so anyone can go over actionnetwork.com and check that out, or in the award-winning Action Network app. But yeah, I really like Christian Rodriguez. As I was researching this fight, I think I kind of talked myself into a better way to play it at a better price. And that's, any kind of late angle you have, this depends on the book. As of this morning, BetMGM had not posted round props for this fight, so keep an eye on that. Could be better price. If you have books where you can do a same-game parlay, fight to start round 2 or over 4.5 minutes, anything like that, with Rodriguez is a little bit better than plus 200. Books where you can do the split rounds, round 3 or by decision, even a little bit better price than that. But all this guy does is take on undefeated prospects, survive the first round, and then take over. He's coming off wins over both Cameron Saman and Raul Rosas. Both of those fights he missed weight at 135, which is why this is at 145. Rosas dominated him in the first round, took him down a bunch of times. Rodriguez was able to get up every time. Rounds 2, 3, Rodriguez takes over. Next fight, Cameron Saman, known for his striking. Saman wins the first round on a couple judges' scorecards. One of them still gave it to Rodriguez. Rounds 2 and 3, unanimous to Rodriguez. Same story. Now he's fighting Isaac Dalgarian, 6-0, former D2 wrestler, former state champion in high school, all stoppage wins, all first round wins, never been out of the first round. It's the same story, right? It's an undefeated prospect, likes to finish people in the first round, have no idea how he does beyond that. Even looking at his amateur record, Dalgarian's never made it out of the first round. I was really, heartened by the grappling performance of C-Rod against guys like Simon and Rosas. He defended 13 of 16 takedowns from Raul Rosas, got up from 2 of the 3 that did land. One of them, the round ended. And then I believe, defended all 5 or all 6 from Cameron Saman, and then also beat Cameron Saman at his game on his feet. I don't love that he's going up to 145 for this, but he's just 26 years old, still filling out, still getting some of that man strength. If anything, I think he's going to be better at 145. The weight class is why this line is what it is, because he does have a loss. His only career loss is at 145. Also took that one on like 2 weeks' notice, so we can write that one off. And looked pretty good, all things considered. So yeah, everything is favoring him. The guy who's coming in at 139, 140 when he was supposed to fight 135. Don't think he's going to be too small for the division. He's had some time to put some size and strength on. And, in your mid-20s is when that strength and muscle really tends to come on. So everything is pointing me towards Rodriguez. Like the money line, but I'd much rather get the better price. And then obviously with all these angles I've laid out, perfect live opportunity too after round 1. Dalgarian's going to come out hard, look for some takedowns, might find 1 or 2. Don't think he keeps it up into 2 or 3. So best way to play it is live. Don't want to assume that anyone's watching this pretty low-level fight night on their Saturday evening, though. So, if you want a pre-fight angle, any kind of late prop.
Bryan, favorite prop for UFC fight night, Vegas 88?
Going back to Tai Tuivasa, if you're taking him to win this fight, one of the things you have to sprinkle on is him to knock out Marcin Tybura of round one. Like, it's one of those things where he has the knockout resume, which is largely in the first round. He has 13 of his 14 wins by knockout. 11 of those are in the first round. And right now it's plus 275 for him to get the stoppage in the first round, which is a tasty number to me that you just have to sort of put a small amount. Like, I wouldn't go crazy and put, like, I'm not a $100 bettor myself, so I wouldn't even put that like on the money line straight up. But I would put something small on that because the resume is there. It's what he's going to be looking to ultimately do, because that sense of urgency, when you're at this crossroads portion of his career, he's 30 years old, he has 3 straight losses. You're looking to build back up a winning streak. You're the A side in the main event still, even after all that. Like, yeah, you're trying to come out guns blazing and immediately test Tybura's chin, who's been knocked out again 5 times in his MMA career. So I think you have all the recipe for this plus 275 bet to cash. I'm not calling it a guarantee. Nothing in betting is a guarantee, but I do think that this is something that I would look at as one of my favorite props on the board. And also for him to just, if you want to stretch it between rounds 1 and 2, which is where all his knockouts have come through, because he has multiple knockouts in round 2, you could get that plus 170-ish, I believe, right now, at one prominent book. And I think plus 160 at another. Obviously, you'd rather add the plus 170. Knockout or TKO between rounds 1 and 2. I think both of those numbers are very, very tantalizing and likely, I would say.
All right. We'll wrap this up with a best bet from Billy and Bryan, and then we'll get on out of here. Billy, going back to the prelim card for a side.
Yeah, the line movement on this one has turned it from a final bet to a best bet, just because we're getting a little bit of better price than I expected to. And that's Jafel Filo in a flyweight fight against Odi Osbourne. I just think this fight is kind of tailor-made for Filo. He made his UFC debut on less than a week notice against Muhammad Mokaev, undefeated elite grappler. Had Mokaev fully extended in a knee bar that Mokaev kind of gutted through, Filo had sold out trying to finish that submission, didn't get it, ended up submitting himself, but like huge stock up performance for him, even in a loss against a guy who's now top 10 or probably top 5. I haven't checked the flyweight rankings. And then comes back and does exactly what we expected him to do, which is submit his next opponent. He's fighting Odi Osbourne, kind of a longer, skinnier striker in a small cage where Odi's not going to be able to find the distance to use his 4 or 5 inch reach advantage. And Filo's going to be able to close the distance and grapple with him. Odi has 4 losses in the UFC. 2 of them are by submission, including the last one. Longer, skinnier guy. As someone who's done a lot of grappling myself, I love trying to take down those tall, skinny guys. Higher center of gravity. It just gives you more opportunities to get inside and do those things. They got longer limbs, which gives you more option to submit them. Long, skinny necks for you to choke. This feels like a fight that the UFC knows what they have in Odi Osbourne, and that's a guy who's going to be about 500, hang around, have a fun fight every once in a while. And Filo could be a contender in a division that really needs some young contenders, because the current champ has already beat the top 2 or 3 guys, so there's not a lot going on at the top. I think this is set up as a showcase fight for Filo. The matchmaking knows what they're doing. They gave him, a matchup against a guy who people know and has had some success, but has a massive weakness in the area that he's good at. And then they put it in a small cage where it makes it even easier to do that. So all of those things on Jafel Filo, I think you can get as good as minus 155 now. I took him in a little bit longer odds earlier in the week, kind of regretting it, but I'd play this one, minus 180, minus 190 is about where I'd stop playing. So maybe we get an even better price. I don't think there's any rush on this one. You could wait till closer to fight time.
And Bryan, why don't you wrap us up? Yeah, you're right. That price has come down about 25 cents on Filo.
Yeah, everyone in the world is expecting Ovince St. Preux to be destroyed by Kennedy Nzechukwu. I do think there's some tricky bets on this fight. I don't feel like you're getting enough value on Nzechukwu, and obviously because we all expect them to win this fight, but he's you're finding him at minus 225 to win within the first couple rounds. The over under is 1.5, which that's a stay away from me, because I could see this lingering on a little bit. I understand St. Preux 17 losses, 9 of them have gone distance. But ultimately, this is the biggest favorite on the card. Nzechukwu is at minus 700. I think if he's available as shorter than 200, minus 200 odds to win by knockout or TKO, like, yeah, I would take him to win that fight. One book has him at minus 190. I saw minus 180 earlier this week. And that should be ultimately the outcome. Like, that's what we should see. I would probably stop at around 200. And I would probably even wait because the line is not great. And maybe there will be some underdog money that comes in that tilts it a little bit more in your favor at the last minute, because, you know, people love themselves some underdogs, especially on MMA cards. But yeah, Nezacekwu should get this done. And he should really get this done in emphatic fashion. Like, this is the showcase fights of all showcase fights. And he, you know, could use a victory right now, a loud one as well. I also would look at, just for him to probably win within the first couple rounds in the fight. But again, anything larger than like minus 200. And even then, I'm a little skeptical of it, because like, it's not something I have like 100% confidence in that it's going to happen, but it should happen. It's what should be the outcome. And I do think that if he doesn't, then we should be talking about like, yo, what are you really doing here in the UFC? Like, this is one of those type of fights. Like, I said this about Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou last week, like in one of the videos for here. I'm like, Anthony Joshua, you got to retire if you lose to Francis Ngannou. And he treated him like a novice, got him out of there in 2 rounds, as he should have, as Tyson Fury probably, you know, could have if he actually trained for the fight. But yeah, it's a similar situation to me here. Like, you have to get done what you have to get done and then move along, because this is not I'm not even sure how this fight got made also. Like, that's one of the other interesting things to me here. Like, I'm not even like, I don't even know what we're doing here with this, but you know, Kennedy Nezacekwu, please, like, just get the stoppage and move it along. And this should not linger on for more than a couple rounds.
To speak to that real quick, I believe this one came together within the last week or two. Like, there were some shakeups to the card. They were trying to make stuff happen. So to your point, I don't think this was a fight that anyone like was really dying to see so much as they needed to fill out the card. And that probably helps the under, you know, it probably helps stoppage, you know, quick stuff like that. Because I don't think either of these guys can really trust their cardio at this point. These are some big, strong dudes. Cardio doesn't tend to hold up well, even under the best of circumstances. Now you make them fight on a week or two notice. Probably only helps your case here, as does the smaller cage, because you got nowhere to hide from the massive Kennedy Nezacekwu with his 83-inch reach, which is just insane for how little this cage is. It's going to look like, you know, a toddler's playpen in there with these 2 big boys.
Yeah, and speaking of birthdays, OSP turns 41 next month. So, like, come on.
So he's got his whole plan mapped out now.
You know, like, this may be a fight where he puts his gloves down at the end of the cage if it ends badly. Like, I just, you know.
But it is his birthday month. You're right, Brendan. It's a whole month of extravagance for Ovin St. Preux. Going to have a big party in the octagon. It'll be great. Can't wait to see it.
Not a lot of guys putting together 44 career MMA fights. This will be his 44th.
Wow. All right, fellas. We did it. UFC Vegas 88 goes down on Saturday. 13 fights, 7 prelims, 6 on the main card, all on ESPN+. Thanks for tuning in. Please rate, review, and subscribe on the audio side. Also, if you found us on Action Network YouTube, great. Please subscribe to the channel. Like the video if you are so inclined. And yeah, as I mentioned off the top of the show, tons going on. We have Payoff Pitch returning on a regular basis very soon. We also have Big Bets on Campus for the March Madness stuff coming up, as well as Selection Sunday. They'll have a special breakdown episode when the bracket is released. And our UFC betting previews every Friday. And welcome, North Carolina. Just got legalized and active this past Monday. So very good. For Bryan and Billy, you can find them in the Action app. I'm also certain, everything I said at the top of the show, Zerillo will be in the app and giving picks. And he'll be on top of his stuff for this fight card. So find Sean Zerillo in the Action app as well. Follow those guys if you haven't already downloaded the free award-winning Action Network app. And happy birthday, Sean Zerillo. I genuinely mean that. I know it sounds like I don't genuinely mean it. I genuinely mean that. I want to be very clear. This was not about Sean. It's just the birthday thing. It got me. It just got me on a Friday morning. So Bryan Fonseca, Billy Ward, Brendan Glasheen, thanks for listening to the Action Network podcast. Our UFC betting preview is in the books. We are presented by BetMGM, the king of sports books. You all have a fantastic weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.